again, having said that and talking about what we've done this season, 32-40, not good enough for Steve Yzerman or for Red Wings fans.
Yeah.
I think that we can all agree that. But I think it's a tale of two seasons, right? We were talking briefly before this. I think that the first half of the season, the Red Wings were kind of surprising us. We were very excited. Oh my gosh, maybe this team's good. And then we had a complete collapse in the second half of the season. Now, I think I would love to start and open up the floor with my question is, was this season a failure? Was it successful at all? Was it a tale of two seasons? And does that really matter? Like at the end of the day, it's a losing season, right? Yeah. And our head coach was fired, and we're looking for new coaches.
So I think because of those things, it's hard to say that this season didn't matter. When you fire a coach, and when you do have a tale of two seasons, that is something worth like kind of highlighting, because if they were just bad, we could just chalk this up to, well, they're still within a rebuild. There's nothing to see here. They're just going to keep, they're just going to get better draft position. They're going to add better pieces. Because they did look so cohesive and they looked much better than I think a lot of people expected in that first half of the season, when you had Larkin, Bertuzzi, you had your two veteran guys playing really, really well. And then you have two young guys that are playing above what a lot of people thought they would be able to play, as far as when looking at Lucas Raymond and Mo Seider. And then everybody else kind of, like Ned was playing really well in goal. There was a lot of things that were going well for the Wings early on. And if they had continued that, we'd be like, oh, this was an amazing season. Like they even if they didn't make the playoffs, we'd be like, oh, well, they played better than they did. But it was a complete collapse. And I feel like that's something that's worth highlighting, because that to me is not just a reflection of coaching, right? And we talked about how Blashill basically being fired. Yes, he deserved to be fired, because clearly he's not the coach to take them to that next level. And I
completely agree.
And I think Steve Yzerman made that assumption based off of what he saw in the first half of the season. When you see that, like, okay, we have enough pieces here to be competitive. And then he kind of even said in his press conference, like, it started to show though that they weren't competitive against the better teams. So now it's like, okay, well, we need to upgrade in this area. But the collapse in the second half is not just a Jeff Blashill issue. The collapse in the second half is a desire that I believe the players didn't necessarily showcase. And that's why you saw them kind of fall apart there.
Do we think we would rather have seen the whole season be bad? Is it? Yeah. Like, would you rather see the whole season suck and they slowly get better at the end? Or do we like that we saw glimpses of how good this team could be and then the collapse? I'm torn, because I would rather. It's cool to see that, but the total meltdown.
Well, because look at what. All right, I know we're supposed to be focused on just Wings, but
that's fine.
I'm going to bring another team.
That's fine.
Look at what happened with the Lions.
Right? Oh, that's what I was going to do. Yep.
Well, then
100%.
No,
go.
Miko's going. Miko, go. John, follow up.
Because essentially, that's what I was going to say was, if looking at how the Lions season went, they were terrible from the start. They were really, really bad that first half of the season. They come back out of the bye week, and even though they didn't get wins like right away, they looked completely different. They definitely looked like they had more fight. And there is rarely where you see a team that finishes 3-13-1 go into the offseason and the fan base is like encouraged. And that's all we've been talking about with the Lions the last couple of weeks, is like how we can't wait for this team to get back into training camp and get back on the field, because we think that they'll be able to carry that momentum into next season. The Wings didn't give us that. The Wings gave us the opposite of that. We got like all of our candy and sweets in the beginning, and we were like, oh, sweet. So we don't have to like eat vegetables. And then by the second half, they were like, no, here's all these Brussels sprouts.
You have to eat this.
You have to eat this. And it sucked. And that's what made the second half of the season so difficult to watch.
I mean, you can't say it much better than that. Honestly, I think that's totally fair, because my gut goes, gee, what are we going to do to kind of get the Wings back on track, right? We got to get a new coach, and we got to get going in the right direction. That's what Stevie said in his presser.
Yeah.
Is like, we got to get this turned again. Like, but I thought we just turned it. Mm-hmm. We didn't turn it. We turned it one way. It's like a big boat. We oversteered one way. We got to go back the other way a little bit.
Yeah.
So John, I mean, I agree with Miko. Obviously, that's a great comparison. Is there anything you want to add in regards to that, in regards to the Lions?
Yeah, that's where I was going with it, was just to compare it to the Lions, and that this is why, like, I don't even think a tale of two seasons is fair. I think I'm falling in the camp of failure. This was a failed season.
What?
Because like, not necessarily to compare it to the Lions, but just imagine if the Lions had this season, how would we feel going into the offseason if they started not necessarily red hot, but they were exceeding expectations. And then over the course of the, remaining 2 months, the back half of the season had just had this implosion. We would be saying Campbell's not the guy. Holmes doesn't know what he's doing. The Fords, same old Lions. Like we would and it would be absolutely warranted and true. But and I want to touch on something that about like the players. Give Holmes and Campbell credit. Like, it really seems like the players kind of quit for whatever reason, or not necessarily quit, or maybe they just weren't as good as we thought they were. But, there were undrafted free agents and third stringers, and Jonah Jackson playing every position along that O-line towards the end of the season. And as Miko said, they fought like hell, and they just kept playing, which is why I kind of think, to go on a tangent, as I want to do, there's this great
not allowed.
There's this great behind the scenes feature in season 2 of Arrested Development, where Tobias is playing. He's like in the gear of Felicia Featherbottom, and he's the like the Mrs. Doubtfire esque character.
Thank you.
So, but it's like a behind the scenes thing, and he's going on a rant because like I think they just got word that their Fox was ordering fewer episodes than they had contracted, and so David Cross, super smart guy, goes on this rant about how he just lists off boom, 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 all the awards that they've won for writing, for acting, for best comedy, for best ensemble, for this, that, from BAFTAs to Emmys to Golden Globes, just goes on the laundry list. So he's like, the problem isn't on this side of the camera, maybe the marketing team or like and so he's just like, it seems like we're doing okay. So in my thought with the Red Wings, like, because they got off to that good start, I feel like maybe there was like a little bit of that with when the players were like, the problem's not here.
Yeah.
Like, the problem's not on the ice. The problem's in the offices. And so
the problem with that is, though,
in the offices, that's Yzerman.
But the problem with that is, when you turn on the games, you can see that the problem is on the ice.
Right.
Like that's the whole problem here, is that when you turned on Wings games, it was a huge problem. It's specifically on the defensive end of the ice. And that's where, like, I agree with you, John. I think that is something that probably helped or facilitated that thought process of like, well, hey, we're doing really well, because, correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, wasn't it like game 1, Larkin got a hat trick? Game 1?
No, it wasn't game 1. Game 1, Larkin got actually suspended when he threw his gloves off. They played Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
They had his inductant. They did the whole captain ceremony, and they played Tampa Bay, and then he got cross-checked in the neck, and he dropped his gloves and went after the guy. I forget who it was. But Bertuzzi, I don't remember. He had a hat trick game 1 or game 2. I mean, it was early.
Yeah. And so, like, but there was a lot of that like early in the season where like Larkin's getting 2-goal games, Bertuzzi's getting like 1 or 2 goal. Like, Raymond got a hat trick pretty early in the season. And like, so to John's point, I think if you see all this offensive success, because that's what everybody loves to see, everybody loves to point to scoring.
Sure.
It really covered up the deficiencies that they had on the other end of the ice, because they were scoring. But once scoring became more difficult, the issues that they had on the defensive side of the ice really showed up. And again, that's not just on Ned. That's not just on the goalie.
No,
in those situations.
That's completely, I mean, it's not. Ned stood on his head. I mean, he had a really solid season, and yes, the defense is an issue. Individual defense was an issue for the defensemen and the forwards. So, but I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna disagree with both of you and say that this is a failure of a season. And I'm going to say there is a lot of good that came out of this season. Larkin proved that Larkin is the guy, can be the captain. Okay. Mm-hmm. He had 30-goal season and he got core surgery. Didn't even get to finish. He probably could have gotten 40 goals. That would have been huge. So that was huge to see that Larkin, okay, he's the guy. Ned, I think we have a goalie, right? We found a goalie. I think what I'm trying to say is like Raymond, Mo Seider, these guys that we've drafted are working. And then the young guys that are going to come hopefully next season up, right? Yeah. To the I think in regards to the organization and the direction they're going with the individual parts and pieces, to me, I saw improvement from last year to this year. This year to me, in that regard, was successful. To see that we have those pieces, to know that we have those pieces, now we have to put it together. I think that the second part of the season was horrible. I think a lot of it is on the players. I think Darren McCarty called out a lot of the players in regards to that. I think that coaching obviously plays a huge, the coach is gone, and we're going to talk about coaching in a minute. But to me, I still think that this season was overall successful. It's a rebuilding season. Again, Miko, to your point, we had our candy up front, like ready to go, like so excited, like, oh my God, this team's we're going to go to the playoffs. I think I even said it, like, no way we're Yzerman's playing ready to go. Like, let's just count us in for the playoffs. Terrible regression, collapse. Now, John, to your point, I think that part of that could be in the offices. I think that everyone is to blame here. I think Blashill's the guy who gets blamed for it. We're going to try to do new coaching. We're trying and solve that. But I think everybody has a little bit to blame. I think Yzerman less. He's putting the pieces together. But, Yzerman's still bringing in people. Nick Lindstrom just came in. We're going to talk about coaches in a minute. He's got to bring in these coaches. He has to fix this. Yzerman has to fix this offseason. If he doesn't get the right coach, then this is Yzerman's fault.